Hey, what's up, y'all? I am Simon Garcia, and welcome to CrashinConvos. This podcast is all about exploring the ups and downs of life, wellness, resilience, and everything in between through the arts of conversation. We'll also dive into deep discussions on existential questions, philosophical thoughts, and how we are part of something bigger. By sharing my experiences along with those of my guests, I hope to bring you inspiration and a sense of direction through connection, which may help the listener begin to understand and unravel some situations they may be facing. To support this podcast, please subscribe, like, or share with someone you feel it may help. Thank you for your time and your presence. Now, I welcome my next guest. That always sounds strange, but I guess in today's world of AI and everything else, it's on par.
Yep.
All right, so I don't want to jack up your last name, so you're gonna have to help me out with your last name. But here we have I've been trying to have Kelly on for a while now. Is it Kawakahui or how do you
Kaaekuahiwi.
say that again?
Kaaekuahiwi.
Kawai Kuahiwi. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close.
So I met Kelly through the Dirt Therapy Project and mountain biking in general. But yeah, he's recently moved up to Utah with better views and better riding conditions, I assume. Uh,
Pretty good.
Pretty good. So how long has it been since you moved up there?
Almost 2 years.
Dang.
Yeah. Came out here, Memorial Day weekend, made the drive from Texas out to Utah of 23.
Dang. It feels like it was like a lot longer for some strange reason.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like it feels like home, yet it's like, whoa, we've it's the we've been here almost 2 years. And then it's
Yeah.
like, wow, it's only been 2 years. So
That's crazy. Like how long has it been since you've been home, like living home? Like, you're from Utah, right?
no, I'm from Northern California.
That's right. That's right.
So
Northern California.
yeah, we went back last summer, and then before that, it's been a couple years, and just off and on whenever I can get out there. But
You're talking about
yeah,
California, right?
yeah, California.
So when you go back to California, how does it feel? Does it feel like home or does it feel like home but kind of foreign?
It feels like home, but foreign now. I grew up in such an awesome area. I was up in the Sierra Nevadas, in a small town called Dorrington. It only had a population of 800 people, but on a busy weekend, it would be 10,000 people with their second and third homes. So it was up near the ski resorts, right between Tahoe and Yosemite, and just is a beautiful area up in the mountains in the trees, lots of snow, rivers, lakes. Like it was just awesome. And I still love going back to see all that, but it's amazing how, especially in a small town that's kind of tourist driven, um, there's times where tons of people are there and it looks like the area is thriving, and then if you're there when no one's around, almost feels like a ghost town. Like it's a lot of the same but different. You got a few restaurants and little stores that are still open in the bigger town down the hill, but then a bunch of others have left, and it's I don't know. It's you kind of want it to always be what you remembered, and then you go back home and some things are, but when you see things that aren't, but it's not always for the better, it kind of lets you down.
Yeah, I mean, and I asked that question because it's similar here. Like I I'm from here. I'm from San Antonio, but I figured when I would retire that and I moved back, it would kind of have that same feel, but I just feel like separate from it. Like I know this is
Mhm.
where I'm from, and I just feel like I'm always supposed to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
Um, so what was it? I grew up in the city, right? So I didn't really know what it was to be like outdoors. Like we go to the lake every once in a while,
Mhm.
but like what was it? And trails or anything like that, mountain biking was definitely out of the question. I mean, we had like a Huffy or whatever bike we could afford at the time and jumping like just random crap that we'd find across the street, that people would throw out, whatever materials or what have you. But what was it like to grow up in? like a resort town where you have access to all those things like trails and slopes, snow. I assume you snowboard as well as
Yeah.
mountain bike. Did you mountain bike there as well?
It's funny, I never mountain biked until I moved to Texas, the second time I moved to Texas. I lived my entire life living in mountains, like big mountains with trails all around. And when I was growing up, like we didn't have a ton of money. I grew up mostly with a single mom. My dad lived an hour and a half away down in the Central Valley. But like I think I was in seventh grade or eighth grade when I got a um, Kona Cuckoo BMX dirt jumping bike, just a single
Hmm.
speed rear rim brake. And that's what I rode and pretty much everywhere until I got my driver's license. And I rode all these trails around, but we'd be just, I mean, single speed bike, me and a buddy, seventh or eighth grade, just pushing our bikes up this fire break road to go ride down these like deer trails behind someone's house. And you get down to the bottom and your arms are just itching and hurting and uh like having to stop because there's fallen trees all over the place. But it's yeah, there were trails all over, and I spent a lot of time out on them, whether it was running around or hiking or just. I often use the trails to just get to places. Like
Hmm.
I lived up at 5,000 feet, but there were only two or three kids my age that lived in that town, so most of my friends lived down. So I'd ride this single speed BMX bike through. It was Big Tree State Park. It has the northernmost grove of sequoia redwoods, so the biggest living things on Earth were 2 miles from my house. And so I'd push my bike up a road near one of my friends' houses and get on this back trail in the state park and ride through the state park 1,000 feet down about 7 miles to get to the next town. And
Dang.
there was one day I was riding and I'm by myself. I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna go down and I got a backpack, I got swim shorts, I got random stuff. I got my Walkman CD player with some CDs in there to kill time. And I was
Dang.
riding, and all of a sudden, I see two baby bears run right in front of me. And in my mind, I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And then instantly, it's like, "Oh, Mama Bear's not far away. I need to get moving." And I go to pedal, and I'm on the single speed BMX, and there's no pedal to give. I'm already maxed out, and so I'm
Oh,
just like by myself, just terrified. And I go as straight as I can for as long as I can, and just get out of there.
dang. I
And
interviewed
then
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I would say at the end of it, at the end of the day, whoever I hung out with, wherever I went swimming, I'd like hitchhike back up home because I don't want to ride a single speed back 1,000 feet uphill. So I throw my bike in the back of someone's truck and get back home. And that's
Nice.
like 13, 14, 15 years old.
So that was your first shuttle then.
Yeah, exactly. I shuttled pretty much every day that I wasn't working, doing lifeguarding stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah, I had a interview, and that's strange, right? Because here, like, the only thing that it was either like cars, people not paying attention, like where they're driving, or it was like dogs, just like
yeah.
dogs running around. And like I got bit by a
Hmm.
chow chow riding my bike when I was yeah,
Chows could be mean.
yeah. So, yeah, but either way, but we didn't have, I would rather get bit by a dog than a freaking bear.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, for sure.
I was interviewing Kenny from SOS, Soldiers on Single Track, and he was
Hmm.
telling me how he was pedaling at at the peaking edge, got to the top, and as soon as he started to drop in, a brown bear was coming across, and he just decided to start going, and then he just pedaled as hard as he could, and then he ended up passing it, but he was just telling me about that. But then I think it was on the same line. I don't know if I'm jacking this up. He ended up hitting like a double or something, and when he came across the gap, there was a deer on the other side, like feeding, and he hit the. I want to say he hit the deer with his back tire or something like that, and he crashed. The deer. He looked over once he got up, and the deer was knocked out. And yeah, so it was like I was just like, man, those are things that would come across my mind. Like when I was in Colorado,
Hmm.
I went up to what was it called? Um, Carbondale, and
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So there's a Prince Creek trailhead, I believe, but I had never been there before, and I don't. I mean, this is my fault. I don't ever really plan. I just go and I just figure it
Hmm.
out. But with that, I remember like panting really hard, like trying to climb the freaking, and I ended up doing the fire road the whole time. That's a whole separate story.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, because it had like those return trails and the uh return trail and the downhill trail almost like at one point they're together, like
Oof.
at the bottom. So I didn't want to be going up the downhill trail and I didn't know where to exit. So I exited too soon and I didn't go back on. So I ended up riding the fire road the whole time. Either way, for whatever reason, it clicked in my mind. Like I'm by myself, and I just thought of mountain lions for some strange reason. But then I just immediately like started to focus on my breath, so that way I wasn't like sound like a freaking wounded animal, It's like, But yeah, it's a definitely real thing when you're riding by yourself. At least for me, maybe it's a city thing, and maybe being in the woods and stuff like that a little bit longer, you have a little bit more understanding of the likelihood of it happening. But at the end of the day, that's something you can't really control.
Yeah, you can't control it. And I mean, like I said, where I lived, small town, there's a lot of nature. We'd be, I got my first job right as I turned 14, legal to work. You have to go get your high school, like to sign off that you're able to work and you don't work more than certain hours a week and all that. And there was the only thing in my town, there was two real estate offices, a general store, with a hotel with a bar and or a restaurant. And the hotel was like this 150-year-old building with like 8 rooms and one shared bathroom for everybody. And then yeah, the bar was a separate building over there. But all three of those buildings were owned by the same family. And it was my friend's grandma, because I mean, small town.
Yeah.
And I went and got a job as the dishwasher at the restaurant there. And the restaurant was nice. Like they made great food and the place was sold out every weekend and they had special holiday dinners and all that stuff. And it was great. The only downside is I lived so close that I just walked there and walked home, which sounds great, except when you're in the woods and you're walking home by yourself at 1 o'clock in the morning and there's a bear going through the dumpster of the real estate office right at the bottom of your driveway. And I have to somehow get from point A to point B with a bear at right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like creeping through the woods, but trying not to stay silent, like just making noise so that I don't startle the bear. It's more of, hey, I'm here, I'm walking. And I'd like kind of sing to myself or do whatever, just try and make myself look as big as I can as I walk. And almost every time the Bears are just so focused on going through the dumpster of all the rental properties that it didn't bother me. But there's been multiple times too. We're sitting there having dinner at my house, and then my sister's face just like goes like that, and I'm like, What are you doing?" And she just points, and I look behind me, and there's a bear just looking through our window
Oh
as we're just
man.
eating dinner. And yeah, mountain lions, bobcats, like everything is up there, and it's just part of it, and you kind
Yeah.
of get used to it. In the summertime, I was a lifeguard, and I made tons of friends for all these people that didn't live there normally. They'd come up and vacation, and a ton of kids my age while I'm lifeguarding, and so you make friends with them. At night, you guys go hang out, and there were all these lakes up there too. And in the summer, even though we're up at 5,000 feet, the water in the lakes, because they were relatively shallow, got fairly warm. So you go night swimming, whether clothes were on or off, but we'd go swimming, go hang out on this dock, and then you go to get out and there's a bear on the beach right next to all your clothes. You're like, I guess we're hanging out in the water a little longer. Like
Yeah.
just whole different world.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, down here it's like water moccasins. You see a water
Oh yeah.
moccasin, you just got to get out. Or I mean, that's usually what I do.
Yep.
Or I mean, sometimes I swim by, but I don't know. It kind of stays stuck in my head. Like they go underwater, and there's like a myth too that they can't bite you in the water, but I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think I've looked that up. I think they can bite you in the water.
Yeah, I don't think I'd test it. The
Yeah,
uh
I definitely
the
don't want
they
to test it.
I lived in Texas for 7 years, and the animals I saw, most of them, animals and insects and everything, a lot of them just make me want to avoid certain things. Like we lived on a lake in Texas, and I never went in it once.
Yeah. Which lake did you live on? Oh, is that
Uh,
in
it
which?
was, it was just in Wichita Falls. It was just a
Yeah.
small like neighborhood lake, a bunch of homes are built on. But there were people out there that would go kayak, but you wouldn't go swimming in it. Just
Yeah.
that red brown dirt water.
Was that because of like, I mean, that's just the way the water was, I assume. I never
Yeah,
went to that lake.
it's
Was that Lake Wakahachi or what lake was it?
so there's wow, man, I don't remember the name. There's one lake on the south side of the town, but this one was a very small, just it was an old catfish farm. And
Mm,
so it had these tiers that made a horseshoe and it was right off of the Red River. And so combined with the red clay and the water being filled from either rain runoff or overflow from the river, it was the same color as the Red River. So it's just this clayish, brownish water. And I've seen snakes swimming out there a ton. And I was like, you know what? I'll just stay in the swimming pool.
that's probably it's probably a smart choice.
Yeah.
So growing up in like California and stuff, like was there any bases around there?
Uh, so near me, the closest bases, there were two Air Force bases. Travis Air Force Base
Hmm.
was about 2 hours, 10 minutes away, kind of west of Sacramento. And then Beale Air Force Base, north of Sacramento. When I was really young, Castle Air Force Base was still open. And I remember going to the Castle Air Force Base air show, the very last one before the base got bracked. And that was really cool. I mean, I was in what, second grade, third grade, but we went to that. And because it was the last one, they pulled out some really cool stuff. And I remember an SR-71 doing a flyby. And even though those were gone from Beale, they were still using them at Edwards at the time down in Southern California. And for that plane to fly from Edwards to Merced is nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
that's probably 10 minutes. And yeah, so the bases were far, but we did have a MOA east of where I lived up in the mountains. And so we would have jets fly over all the time. And so there'd be Hornets flying over from Fallon. We had the T-38s flying over from Beale, the companion trainer with the U-2s there. And then we went to air shows all the time. Aviation wise, like my mom's side of the family, her dad, him and his brother started a helicopter company in Clovis near Fresno back, I don't know, 1950s or so. And the company's still running. It's Rogers Helicopters. It's on the east side of the airport there at Fresno International. And you have the guard unit with F-15s right across the runway. So I saw them all the time flying, and it was F-16s back then. But with the aviation, like I'd go flying all the time up in helicopters and PG&E, the main electric company for California, for 40 years, the helicopters they used were my family's. And so they had a little kind of maintenance substation right next to my high school. And I would get to go up whenever I stopped by with the pilot, the PG&E pilot, because he was actually our family's pilot contracted PG&E. And E. And
Whoa.
I'd stop by and be like, "Hey, Vern, where are you going today?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going up in the canyon. You want to go?" It's like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, hop in." Just hop in the helicopter and go fly up in the canyons of the Sierra Nevadas. And so like that was really cool. Sadly, my grandpa died in a helicopter crash while fighting a fire when my mom was 9. So back
Mm.
in 1972. And so I never got to meet him. And then his brother took over the company. His brother taught his son how to fly. And then his son was flying up Sonora Pass trying to recover a crashed plane from World War II. And they were going to bring it down and restore it and put it in a museum down in Fresno. And while they were disconnecting the engine, he's going to bring the engine down and then come back up and get the actual airframe. When they disconnected the engine with the helicopter connected, the engine slipped, and because they were up at 11,000 feet, the helicopter had no air to grab, and it got pulled down, and he ended up dying in a crash 20 years to the day that my grandpa died. And so from
Whoa.
then on, they didn't let family fly anymore. Um, so on that day, no matter where they're at, who's doing what operations, our helicopters don't fly on that day. Um, but our helicopters do everything from transport, firefighting, filming, agricultural. They've used them in movies. They've used them in. If you ever go to Disneyland, the Soar in California, they put an IMAX camera on the front of one of our helicopters and filmed that whole ride throughout California with that.
Wow.
And so, like, they've used them for cool stuff. And I've got to do a bunch of stuff with them, but we never really reaped any of the benefits of it other than knowing that aviation was in the family. So,
So how old were you when you used to go up and like when they used to offer you those rides? Like were you in second grade? What grade were you in?
um, I went up when I was that young, more so. probably fifth grade or so, all the way through high school. Um, yeah, so I got to do and see a lot of cool stuff with it.
It's pretty cool. Like, I think the first time I saw an aircraft up close was like on a field trip. We went to like Kelly Air Force Base, and
Hmm.
it was just like a C5 or something. Maybe it was middle school. But that was it. Like, we just kind of went up in the back, and then that was about it, you know. But
Yeah.
to have that experience and have that the first hand experience, and then on top of that have family to kind of be a part of that, you know, that, I mean, because at some point, like, you kind of feel involved with it, right? It's my family flying and doing all these cool things, you know, and it's that's an incredible opportunity. Would you say that that kind of gave you your drive or your vision for flying?
It absolutely did. I mean, my fifth grade birthday present for my mom was a barnstorming ride in a biplane, and so we went out to Columbia, California, just south of where we grew up, the next county down, and that's actually the airport my grandpa flew out of when he was fighting fires. Um, Went in a biplane and flew over the mountains in New Melones Lake, the fourth biggest lake in California, and I mean, literally doing aerobatics and flying 10 feet off the water and doing all this fun stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
like not 10 years old, just absolutely loving it. And like when you're flying and it's open cockpit, the wind is rushing over you. Like you kind of you didn't know it back then, but you pretty much get a hard on for
Oh
it.
yeah, dude.
And yeah, and then also every year we used to drive out to Reno and go to the Reno air races. And so you get all the military demos, and then you get the old World War II planes racing going 500 miles an hour past you. And I mean, it was enough to make me want to do it. And my uncle was the lead mechanic for the company for a long time. And every year for my birthday, he'd get me a new flight simulator that I'd play on my computer. And so like
Man.
even people always made fun of me when I'd go over and we'd start playing any shooter game like Halo or something, and I'd have to change the y-axis to inverted because in my mind, if I want to look up, I pull back on a stick. And
Yeah.
so that's how my brain works. And everyone else is like, no, you look up, you push up. I'm like, no, that's pushing forward. That's this. And my
Yeah.
brain just isn't wired that way anymore.
Yeah, I was a part of the majority in changing the y-axis to, well, not inverted, but the other way as your friends, because
Keeping it standard.
yeah, it was. But I mean, that makes sense. Whenever I played, and it wasn't often, like aviation games, like I had to get used to it, but I would always end up changing it. But
Yeah.
so was that? I mean, I think of one thing that you said, and it was like we weren't really like didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, but you were rich in that way, right? And the experiences and the it sounds like you know your family like really kind of took you in and like showed you their passions and then that kind of permeated you and like everything that you kind of move forward with in your life. Were any of those people
That's
military? Oh, sorry.
That's a no, that's a great way to put it is we were definitely rich in experiences. We weren't rich in money. Like there were months where my mom had to choose which utility we were paying. And we went entire summers without hot water in our house. Like cuz oh it's summertime, we don't need it. You want to take a shower, we got a 5 gallon little camping bag sitting out in the sun and hopefully you could do everything. You get enough water running. But experiences, like we spent so much time outside. We spent so much time going to places, whether it was driving out to Santa Cruz to go to the beach or going to Yosemite or just going camping up in the mountains. Um, just, yeah, we didn't have a lot in terms of things, but we had a lot in experiences. And both of my parents did an excellent job with making sure that like we had things to do and not that any of it really cost a lot of money, but when we did do something big, like they made sure it was memorable, which was great. Um, yeah, the in terms of what was the other part? Sorry, the second part of the question.
Yeah, I kind of threw you a couple like I I think I said like permeated you and kind of moving forward and like, oh, that was a question. Were any of your family military?
Yeah, that's it. So no, I in my close family, I'm the first one in the military. Um, I do have so on the Hawaiian side of my family, my dad's side, my grandma's sister married into the Pili Lau family, and there is a member of that family, which was basically when she married in, he became her uncle. Although he was passed away. He was in the Korean War. He was a private first class, Herbert K. Pilau, and he actually won a Medal of Honor on Heartbreak Ridge.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, in Korea, now North Korea, the ridge is just north. And I've actually seen that ridge with my eyes when I was flying up there in South Korea along the DMZ, and it's pretty wild. But his citation is it's insane. It's one of those like, wow, this is the stuff that they make movies about, and they haven't done it. But he
Not yet.
not yet. Yeah, I hope maybe someday. But I mean, kind of a big deal. A young Hawaiian guy winning the Medal of Honor, and basically his camp was getting, or his position was getting overrun, and he held the position so the rest of his unit, he was in the army, the rest of his unit could retreat, and that ridge went back and forth between US, South Korea control and North Korea, Chinese control. And it went back and forth for pretty much the rest of the war. But after they retreated, when they finally took it back and they found his body, they found him with like 47 dead guys around him.
I think I've heard this one on an AFN commercial. I want to say,
Probably.
or something similar. Like, I don't think there's too many of those
Mhm.
that are retold that way, where like the position, there's all these dead bodies around it, which is freaking crazy, man. And
Oh, it's
especially like
insane.
jungle warfare.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Korea, the terrain out there is gnarly.
yeah,
It is gnarly. And then, yeah, they found him, no ammunition left, no grenades left, a knife still in his hand. Like, it's wild.
yeah. And that's when some, I mean, Hawaii is known for a lot of things, but like one of the things I think it kind of gets swept under the rug for whatever reason is like there's like a warrior culture.
There
And
absolutely is. And I mean, maybe it was different back then too, compared to now, but the side where my family's from, Waianae, it's the west side of Oahu. It's rough out there. Like it's beautiful, but it is rough. It is a local place with it's the highest concentration of native Hawaiians anywhere in the world, yet it's also one of the poorest spots of Hawaii. And like I spent a lot of time out there, and I mean it's kind of the area where you either make sure you're with someone or you just keep looking forward when you're driving. Uh, if you respect the area and you don't look for trouble and you aren't littering and you just you go out there, go to the beach, come back, you're fine. But if you start kind of exploring off the beaten path, which I was off the beaten path a lot with my cousins,
hmm
like you start to see some gnarly stuff. But I'm sure back in the 50s, I mean, Hawaii wasn't even a state then, yet these guys are signing up to go and literally doing the most courageous things you could ever imagine. Because I mean, as you know, you get in a military unit, like ride or die with your group, with your unit, they
yeah,
become your family.
yeah, definitely. Especially like coming from that, and that's something I didn't like. You can focus on the negative things, right, of your childhood or what have you. And I was interviewing a buddy of mine I grew up with the other day, and we were talking about that. It was just more the awareness and the understanding of like the environment that we grew up in and how it shaped us to today, and then like
Mhm.
how we may sometimes react to situations or expect certain things based off of that programming, if you will, or just that upbringing and that environment, right? And there's a thing that people usually say is like you're a product of your environment, right? And I feel like that's true to an extent, but with that, that's that tribal mentality, right? Like you grow up with people, and whether the reason you're doing it or what have you, there's that sense of like, hey, we're doing this together. We're gonna fight whoever, and yeah, it's probably like a stupid reason, but that carries over into the military, right? Where you're protective of the people that you're with, and you have that same. Uh, at least I had that same mentality. Too much sometimes, where yeah, I ended up fighting for a lot of people. Not a lot of people. It was kind of the same people, but it put me in situations because I had still had that mentality, but at the same time, I think I still carry that today. I'm just a little bit more smart how uh, I implement that with people or
Yeah.
others. Um, but so growing up in like, and I understand like Hawaii, I mean, and it's because like any other uh, island, I'm assuming that's kind of been overtaken by several different countries or cultures or what have you. Like, did you catch a lot of flack for
Yeah.
obviously your
Yeah.
Juanito, your
I
wife
know.
affected?
Yeah. It's funny. Like my dad is this big giant Hawaiian dude. My sister is dark and I'm white. I took after my mom, man. She's as white as white gets, blonde hair, blue eyed. You get all the Northern European countries combined, and that's what she was. And I just took after that. And I'd show up out there, and it might be a couple years since I'd be out there, but then I show up and I'm with my cousins, and like I'll be hanging out with my cousins, and they were like 10 years older than me, some of them, and they're showing us all the stuff that they do, and whether it's good or bad, we're going along with it. And I've seen us roll up and one of my cousin's best friends being like, "Hey, who's this Hallie?" And before he even finishes the statement, my cousin knocks him out. And it's like his best friend.
Oof.
And it's like he knocked out his best friend because he called me a Hallie. And it's like, one, that's love for your family. And two, that's just how it is out there. Like,
Mm.
even if you're best friends, I mean, my cousins, I've seen them scrap, just fight over something dumb like who gets the fan to sleep at night. Like they're throwing dukes, and then you see them just sitting there waiting, and once the other one falls asleep they just steal the fan and take it.
Damn,
And just it's a different world out there, but the love out there is like you can't find it in a lot of places where, man, when your family, like, they love you and they will do anything for you, and it's pretty impressive, and it's cool to be part of.
definitely. Yeah, as you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about it. Like, even going back to when you're living in California and you were talking about um, how your mom had to decide which utility was going to get paid, and then you taking cold showers and stuff like that. So you were kind of doing that before the trend, cold showers and
Yeah.
stuff, or
Yeah.
cold plunges.
Yep.
Um, and that's cool to like that you and I think to some extent it's talked about often, like how most people that have a lot of resilience is the people that have grown up with um I guess I can't think of lack of a better word, like tumultuous backgrounds, right? There's a lot of shit that had happened and it probably sucked at the time, but fast forward, it's kind of shaped you and grown you into the person you are today.
Yeah. I mean, I I can't change anything that ever happened in the past, but I can certainly learn from it. And there's experiences that I had that no one else will have, or many other people do, and they just don't talk about it, or you would never know without a natural conversation bringing it up. But there was a lot that it made it so when things started getting easy, like I always look back and be like, man, I'm so glad and like privileged to have what I have right now. Like it's I try and make it, yeah, we're doing well right now. Like, I mean, military was good to us, got us through a lot of stuff. And then airlines are great now too. And like I want to provide for my kids the stuff that I had growing up in terms of nature and experiences, but I also don't want them to be just spoiled little brats. And so, like, my son was saying the other night, he's like, "Oh, his mom is cool. She lets us play video games whenever we want." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I let you play video games sometimes, but you need to go outside. Like, you need to do other stuff. Like, I love video games. I play them all the time, but I also love going outside and doing the outside things. And I want you to do more than just plug into a screen. Like when we drive places, there's no iPad. Like our kids don't get to play iPads or play on phones anywhere we go. We'll go places and my son's reading a book and our daughter's looking out the window and singing along to songs I'm playing in the car. And I'd much rather have that because, as you know, like you drive anywhere back when we were kids, the entertainment was whatever's on the radio and cows and fences and
Yeah,
new trees and
and you
out of
come,
state license plates.
yeah, you come up with games
Yep.
in the back, and like just like I don't know what we called it at the time, but like slug bug, right? You're
Slug bug. Yep.
getting the shit punched out of you in the back seat.
Hmm.
But it's good to be bored, and I'm glad you did. And it's good, and I think more parents are starting to do that nowadays, and unfortunately, not enough. I mean, to each their own, right? Like, you raise your kids how you want, but
Yep.
there's definitely a an effect that it's having on our culture, especially with kids. And like I said, I think the tide is turning with that. I mean, at least I hope it is. But the same thing with my kids. Is that a cat?
Yes.
Uh, uh,
Cats do what cats do.
yeah, and it's a balance in it all, right? Because you can't really keep technology away from them because that's just part
Yep.
of the times. But at the
Yep.
same time, it's also like, being a parent is not it's it's not always doing what the child wants. It's what's best for the child and how you want to raise them to be um, a a member of society or a representative of you, right?
Yep.
Um,
Absolutely.
and that's
And
good. Go ahead.
technology has gone so far that technology will be a part of their lives. And so that's kind of where my wife and I differ a little bit. She'd rather them be completely disconnected. And I'm like, no, we can't, because then when they are expected to do something, or they go to a friend's house and they have no idea how to operate it, that's just another thing they can get teased about or bullied
Yeah,
about. And it's like, I want them to be able to be fluent in whatever stuff they need to do, but I also want them to not have to rely on it. So
right.
our kids, the only time they get to hold our phones is when we're FaceTiming family. That's the only time. Like we do not give them our phones in a restaurant to kill time. They're like, I'm bored. I'm like, good. Look at the menu more. Like color.
Yeah, here's some crayons.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like do something else. Like you don't need to do this. So yeah. So I want them to be able to do stuff. And I play video games with my son, and we got our daughter too. They have a Switch, and then I let him play my old PlayStation 4. And the games he plays on that are like FIFA and Madden and
nice.
sports games. And then on the Switch, it's the standard Nintendo games, and then Zelda, which has been real fun playing. Like those are insane now.
I bet. I haven't really played games in a while. I used to play a crap ton when I was younger. I got like a Nintendo when I was like 8 or 9 because my brother got in a car accident, and fast forward, he got a lawsuit. He gave me like $100. It was like the most money I've ever gotten at that time. And the first thing I did was go buy a fucking Nintendo because it had just came
Yeah.
out. But yeah, man, so I played the crap out of that, blowing the fucking cartridge to
Yep.
put it
Blowing the
in,
cartridge,
and
spraying the
yeah,
alcohol in it. And,
yeah,
yep.
yeah. But so I'm curious, like, especially you have kids now, like, what things that you learned as a kid that were like so profound at the time that you're like, well, I know I'm not gonna pass that down, or furthermore, like, fast forward, you're kind of like, oh, that's what they were trying to teach me then. Now I understand that now. Does that make sense?
So yeah. One, the biggest thing is, I mean, I grew up with a single mom, and then she did finally get married when I was in eighth grade, and she was with him all the way through shortly after me and my wife got married, and then she got a divorce. But the um, the biggest thing that I always wanted was like I wanted to be around my dad. Like I wanted to have a dad. And I got that dad 1 weekend a month or 2 weekends a month, and for Friday and Saturday night. And so I know that no matter what's going on, like my wife and I are a team in raising the kids. And if we need to step aside from them and have a conversation so we're on the same page, we'll do that because I don't want them to get contradicting information. They'd be like, well, dad said we could do this, and
Yeah.
mom said we could do this. And so sometimes that happens. Like if you're the only one around, the kids will ask me. And then if I give them a no, they'll go ask their mom. And if they don't tell her that we already asked dad and she says something else, and then they come up and like, what are you doing? They're like, well, mom said we could. I'm like, well, I said no first. And so we're on the same page. We're like, dude, if they ask one of us and it's a no first, it's a no from the other parent as well. And whether we have a good reason for it or not, we're on the same page and we'll talk about it. And if maybe I was wrong, then we'll change it the next time. But try and always be on the same page, have consistency. Um, Listening to kids, that's one thing that my wife's upbringing was very different from mine. Is she grew up in the same home her entire life. Her parents are still married. They just had their 50th anniversary a couple years ago. Like they are they're doing great. Like it's amazing. Not to say it was easy for them forever, but and they still have stuff, but that's part of marriage is you grow and work through things together. Um, where for me, I'm a single mom. The longest I ever lived in a house was 2 years until we moved, until high school. And then I finally stayed in a home. But it's like I was the new kid in school 5 different times.
Mm.
And she had the same kids she knew from daycare, if she had daycare, I don't know. I had daycare because I had a working mom all the way through and still talks with them. And like my lifelong friends began in fourth grade or fifth grade. Um, and then I left them and then rejoined in high school when all those schools combined because I just kept moving up the hill higher and higher. But like her family had open conversations and they were
Mm.
able to talk and experience feelings and all this stuff. For me, there wasn't a lot of open conversations, a little more shallower conversations. And just like, oh, how was your day? Oh, what'd you do? It wasn't any like, how you feeling? Like, what's going
Mm.
on? How do you handle this? So we work so that our kids have those conversations. They're comfortable when they have issues coming to talk to us. And it's like we also let them know of like, hey, it's actually we've had to do it a lot with our son, just trying to fit in, just second grade boy, like trying to learn and do things of like, hey, what's going on with this? And we'd much rather have him tell us, knowing that, hey, there might still be a consequence if you did something wrong, but it's going to be a lot less than if you lie to us and we find out. And
Right.
so it's definitely helped. And we're like, there's been times where like, hey, you're still gonna get a spanking for what you did, but we're glad you told us. And after this, we're gonna learn from it. Where there's also been other times where, hey, this punishment's a lot more severe because you lied to us. And we separate whatever the discipline would be, whether it's removing something, taking something away, but we will say, hey, this is for not telling us the truth. This is for the actual action. And so we separate those so that he knows that, hey, I should just tell the truth. And yeah, I won't get away with whatever it was, but it'll be a lot less than if I lied. So it seems to actually be working pretty well, but we can't control outside influences, but we can control what's in our house and what's around.
Yeah, no kidding. Um, and it seems like outside influences are making their way in the house via social media or like just uh, the technology. But so, man, yeah, that's awesome, man. Like that, like I said earlier, and I touched on earlier, like the things that you probably experienced growing up, it was probably difficult and challenging. But like now, you and your wife have these two different um life experiences that you can like share, right? And they're like so different, but at the same time, it's good for your kids, because they can learn from both of y'all, right? And learn those tools. And then y'all as a couple, right? Um, so what made you join the military? Like what,
So
and how did your parents feel or your mom feel about that? I guess your parents.
yeah, so that's a fun one. So I always wanted to fly. I always wanted to, but like I was not the best student. Like high school, everything before. I think I made honor roll like maybe 3 or 4 times my whole life. Like I wasn't great. I'd much rather be outside. I'd much rather be doing other things, snowboarding, playing on my bike, playing with friends, than just sitting in class or doing homework and stuff. So I never thought I was smart enough to actually like go to an Air Force Academy, go somewhere to be able to learn how to fly. So I kind of didn't think that it would ever happen. I actually didn't even apply to colleges straight out of high school. I applied to one up in Canada because my plan was to go up there and then pretty much become a snowboard bum. And then I decided that, you know what, living in a different country while you're still 17, because I was young for my grade, like probably not a good idea. So I took a year off and got my real estate license and snowboarded a bunch. But I also started swimming my senior year of high school and ended up being pretty good at that. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go swim in college. And so I went to college, California Baptist University in Riverside, California. And I was on the swim team there. And I'd be walking around campus and they always have tables and stuff set up. And they'd have tables for ROTC with Air Force. And I was like, man, I still always wanted to fly. So I kept looking into it, but I was like, it's not possible. And then at the end of the swim season, I was up snowboarding with some friends at Mount High, and I was frontside board sliding the sea box. So board slide, riding sideways but backwards. I come off and land perfectly into a giant hole that they never refilled, and it just threw me. And I went 6 feet to ice to my shoulder, and
Ooh.
had a grade 3 AC separation on this side. And so I tore all the ligaments in my shoulder. And did some rehab, came back swimming the next year, but that swimming motion, this couple thousand times a day, like I could still swim fast, but I couldn't swim more than about 45 minutes. I'd get 45 minutes into our 2 hour practice in college and my arm would be dead and I couldn't move. So I was like, all right, well, I can't swim anymore. And I was coming back from a concert in San Diego with a friend, and we were flying by Miramar, San Diego, where Top Gun was filmed and all that. And there were
Mm.
some jets coming in to land, and I look at her and I'm like, "Man, I always wanted to fly jets." And she's like, "Well, why don't you?" And then I spent the next hour and a half of that drive being like, "Yeah, why don't I?" And I still had the pamphlets for ROTC, and so I decided I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. And then when I call to get information about it, find out my school doesn't qualify as a crosstown school, so I need to transfer schools. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to a different school now. Like I'm done swimming. I'm gonna focus on this. And because I was already at a private Christian school, if I transferred to like San Diego State or one of the non-private schools, I'd lose like a third of my units, so I wouldn't be able to graduate in 4 years. So I chose Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego and applied there. I didn't find out till I got back from a mission trip. I went on a 3 week trip with my previous school, Cal Baptist, to Ukraine and worked in an orphanage for three weeks.
Whoa.
And yeah, that was wild. Eastern Ukraine, pretty close to where all the fighting and stuff is going on right now. And I'm sure most of the kids that I was with are probably out fighting or gone because they're probably the first ones to go do that type of stuff. But the I got back from that mission trip, and that's when I got my acceptance email to Point Loma. And so I'm on campus, summertime, and I go to the registrar there, and I'm like, "Hi, I'd like to disenroll." And she's like, "Oh, why?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to do Air Force ROTC. You guys aren't across town for it." She's like, "Oh, we're just starting that next year." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm already accepted in San Diego, so I'd much rather be down there than Riverside."
Yeah.
And I didn't tell her that, but I was like, "I'm already accepted. I'm going to do this." So I went and got a personal loan to be able to cover the first year there, hoping I can get a scholarship after that. And then I show up to San Diego State to do the ROTC program. And they're like, "So what do you want to do in the Air Force?" I'm like, "Well, I want to be a pilot." And they're like, "Okay, what grade are you in?" I'm like, "I'm starting my junior year." They're like, "Oh, well, you need to do at least 3 years if you want to be competitive for a pilot slot." And I'm like, wow, I'm going to a really expensive school to now do a 5 year program, trying to avoid that 5 year program.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? Whatever. Like, sure, I'll do that so that I can um, try and get a pilot slot. And so go through the whole process of that. And everything that's included and end up getting a pilot slot. Of the 40 people that commissioned, only 5 of us got slots, and I was lucky to be one of those. Um, so yeah, I was able to make it happen. Got a lot of student debt to make it happen, but I mean, it was a lifelong dream that I somehow figured out the cheat code to get in.
And it's
And then sorry, to finish the last
no, you're
part.
good.
When I told my mom, "Hey, I'm switching schools. I'm going to join the Air Force," and her reaction was, "Why? Like, why are you going in the military?" She wasn't too stoked on it initially. Um, and I was like, "Because I always wanted to fly, and the family won't let me, and I don't want to fly helicopters. Like, too many people in the family already died doing those. It costs too much money to go learn how to do this on my own. I'll go get paid to do it and do it the fun way, like fly the stuff that I've always dreamed about doing." And she's like, "Okay." But she never pushed me for it. She questioned why I wanted to do it, but she never said, "Oh, you won't." I think because I was an adult. So
Mm,
she let me make those decisions.
yeah. And then, so one thing I've been kind of, and maybe it's just I forgot what the was it called, pareidolia? No, that's not it. That's when you look at something and but one thing I've been noticing as I talk to people is these things that happen in our lives that kind of shift like our trajectory or gives us the opportunity or the conversations or the question, right? To shift our what we choose to do in our life, right? For me it was and my mom understanding that I needed to get out of my neighborhood and
Mhm.
suggesting the idea like, hey, you should probably consider the military because when we got money for school, and I didn't want to go to school because I'm not a fan of school,
Yeah.
just sitting there. But if and then she made me promise her to go to a some Billy Graham revival, whatever that was coming into town,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't really want to go, but we got in a big dumb argument and fast forward, I went with her, and there was a major there that kind of was from the Air Force, and she spoke on her experience, yada yada. But there's something that kind of shifted in me of like, hey, maybe I can do this, maybe I should do this, or I ain't got no other fucking thing to do, so I might as well join.
Hmm.
But and I got to bring this up before I forget. It's interesting also because you just jacked up your shoulder again
Yep.
snowboarding.
Yep.
So there's like two. So one guy. So maybe something else is big is going to happen in your life. But so for those of y'all that don't know, like, what did you do to your shoulder, real quick? Just kind of.
It was 5 weeks ago. I was snowboarding up a snow basin on 30th day of the season, and it was a great day. I was up riding double blacks and just dropping cliffs and doing all this fun stuff. And then I'm like getting towards the end. It's late morning, and I'm like, oh, I think I'm gonna go ride at Park City for a bit after this. I was up at Snow Basin first, and so I was playing in the park down at the bottom of the mountain, and they had their big jump line set up, and the jumps are perfect. And I was just doing normal shifties and methods and grabs and stuff, and having a good time on it. I'm like, you know what? I haven't done a corked 540 in 6 years. I'm gonna do one of those. And so it's almost more of a frontside rodeo 540. So it's a backflip with a 540 spin landing switch. And that used to be my safety trick. Like, I'd rather do that over a 50-foot jump than just a straight air back in the day. And I think also when you have something to actively think about and do, you're not just freaking out for the whole time you're in the air for 50 feet, or more. And this jump was maybe 30 feet, 35 feet, but it was built so well. The lip, the jump itself
Hmm.
was just as long as the table. So you had this nice smooth transition. There was no kick, nothing to buck you, and it was great. And so I go, and it's the third jump. So I just straight air the first two, make sure speed's good. I do this corked 540, and I land it, and I stomp it, and I'm riding away switch, and I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome. I haven't done this in 6 years, and so I'm riding switch, and then I get away from the jumps, and then I go to revert back to regular, and I revert. going backwards, my back facing down the mountain. I'm looking at the jump. I'm like, yeah, I can't believe I landed that first try. And then right as I get to regular, I'm still on my toe edge. You just catch my toe edge. It just slams me down.
Oh.
So I go, I try and get up, and I'm like, oh, my shoulder hurts. Like, what did I just do? I'm like, this isn't collarbone. I've broken this collarbone twice before, and I'm like, it's not collarbone. And I go and I put my hand on my jacket, and I feel like the head of my humerus just forward. And I'm
Oh.
like, oh, fuck, this sucks. And so I'm sitting there just kind of cussing myself. I move away from the landing of the jump and the outrun. And then I'm like looking around. I'm like, all right, I got to get down the mountain. So I ride the rest of the way down, just hunched over with this arm just against my leg, just trying to support it. Get to the bottom and sit in a chair next to a fire on the patio. And I'm like, all right, waiting for like a ski patrol to walk by to help me get to the ski patrol place because I'm just in a ton of pain. And no one's walking by. I give it like 10 minutes. I'm like, all right, I got to go get this fixed. And so I go to pick up my snowboard, and I can't even pick my snowboard up with my good arm. So I asked some random kid, I'm like, hey, can you put my snowboard on this rack real quick? And he's like, yeah, yeah. So he does it. And I walk to ski patrol. It felt like the forever walk of shame. And I'm like, man, it's how injuries always happen. You do all the crazy gnarly stuff, completely fine. And then you do something dumb on a flat and wreck yourself. And so I walk in there, and I'm just like, hey, I need my shoulder put back into place. Like, oh, how do you know it's out? And I'm like, it's out. They're like, okay. I'd fill out the paperwork all left-handed and looks like chicken scratch, and go back in there, and they're like, okay, yeah, it definitely looks like it's out, but we need to get an x-ray before we put it back in. I was like, okay, let's go do that. Like, well, there's someone in there doing x-rays right now. And I'm like, oh, those selfish people with their other injuries.
How
And so
dare
I'm
they
just sitting
trash?
there, dude, and oh man, this injury sucked. I mean, I started sweating like crazy. I think my heart rate was probably 140 just
Mm.
sitting in a chair. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, dude, just get my shoulder back in. They're like, well, we need to get that x-ray. So we finally go in there, and they're like, can you stand? I'm like, no, I can't stand. Okay, so they give me a stool, and I'm still too low. So I'm like raising my right leg with my arm,
Oh
trying to get my
yeah.
shoulder high enough, and my leg's just bouncing while they're trying to do the x-ray. They finally get it, like, oh yeah, it's definitely out. All right, let's try and reset this. And it seems like it still takes them forever. They finally do reset it, but I think it was out for almost an hour. And I was
Oh
I was trying to get it in as quick as I can, but I don't know what to do.
yeah.
And I didn't have the strength to be able to do it. So it took two people to put it back in, and then they took more x-rays. And the big problem with it is initially I just thought it was dislocation. But I'm like, you know what? This thing hurts a lot. I'm gonna go see a doctor. So I go to an orthopedic guy. They look at the x-rays and stuff, and the x-rays say that there's a fracture on the top of the humerus, right where the rotator cuff connects. So I was like,
Hmm.
let's go see, make sure there's not other stuff going on. They want to get an MRI, and they get an MRI, and they basically like, yeah, you have this fracture up here. We're going to treat it like a fracture. So they just like, all right, you're going to be in this sling for 6 weeks. We're going to treat it like a broken bone, let that bone heal, and then we'll start getting you moving. I'm like, okay. And then I send the MRI to my brother-in-law, my wife's sister's husband. He's like the lead orthopedic, sports orthopedic guy at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And he specializes in shoulders. And so I was like, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. And I trust him, his family. So I send him my MRI, and he and one of his coworkers look at it. And within like 30 seconds, they find a tear on the inside of the capsule. It's called a haggle, which let's see what it actually stands for. I have it up. Um, it is a humeral avulsion of the glenohumeral ligaments. So it's the one other ligament on this side that I didn't tear. So it's the
Mm.
one that actually holds your arm into the socket. And so I tore that, but this doctor I'm with, they didn't see that. And so he's like, if you're going to get surgery on this, which I highly recommend, like you need to go to a specialist because this surgery it doesn't happen often, and it's often missed. Hence, this office missed it. And so I then transferred to a different doctor who's actually out of network for me. So it's going to cost a lot more. But the reason why is because for that repair, where they need to do the repair is only 4 millimeters from the nerve that
Mm.
controls your deltoid. And that nerve right now for me is still not working. Like it's been 5 weeks, and I can't really raise my arm. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
sucks. So I'm in physical therapy right now. I can do stuff with my lower arm, but
Yeah,
I can't
don't
get my arm past there.
yeah, don't
And
dislocate it
so
here.
no, I don't want to dislocate it, and I don't want it to happen again either. So I'm just doing physical therapy right now. I have a follow up April 10th, and then that's probably when we'll decide, like, hey, probably gonna need surgery, or
Hmm.
maybe not. But I'm anticipating doing it because last thing I want is long term instability where I'm riding my bike 5 miles up in the mountains by myself and my arm comes out by myself up there.
Definitely.
Like that's the last thing I want. So yeah. So it seems like talking to the physical therapist, my MRI, and the doctor, I have a fracture, I have a torn ligament, I have a torn labrum, and possibly bicep as well.
Mm, dang, dude.
So
Yeah, so
I did it
complete.
good.
Yeah, you did. You don't do anything half-assed, do
No,
you?
no, it's the 28th bone I've broken. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah.
So reverse, I don't know, what, like 15 years or
Mhm.
so? You fall in a hole
Yeah.
and what did you do? Dislocated your shoulder?
Uh, grade three, an AC separation, so
Okay.
separated it
And then that leads you into,
into my flying career, into the military. And then now I'm with Delta and I do this one and now I'm on disability.
oof.
I can't fly a plane if I can't move my arm. So
Yeah, that's true, but I'm glad that you had somebody in your network to find that, because if they would have jacked it up, then yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, man, that's crazy. So going back to, you join the military, you go to officer academy, and you're on your way to become a pilot. Like, what was that journey like?
So it's funny because going through ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, like you're a normal student. I was a normal student, and then twice a week I'd be at San Diego State at 6 in the morning for the classes and then PT and all the other stuff. In the summertime, while you're in college, you go on different things. So I had to do a month in Alabama and Mississippi for our version of boot camp, but it's basically a month long. They do all the things in that month that the other service academies do throughout their 4 years,
Mm,
other than the classwork and the drill that we have. So all the things you do at boot camp, we're doing there, and um, somehow make it through that. I didn't realize when they even selected for it. Our class was almost 100 people, and only half of us even got to go to that. And so, like, we're there in RHC one day, and they're calling our names, and then at the end of it, they're like, "All right, if you're on this side, you're continuing on. You're going to Alabama this summer. The rest of you, thanks for trying." And their military was done at that point. Like, they didn't get to continue. um, you finish that training, you come back, and then that's actually when I signed my paperwork of like, all right, now I'm committed to at least 4 years in the military after ROTC, because at that point, then I started getting a partial scholarship. I was getting like 7,000 a year, which didn't, it helped, but it didn't cover all my school. So I had to take more loans out. Um, and then the next summer, I got to go to the Air Force Academy for 2 weeks and go jump out of airplanes. So it's their version of the airborne. It's free fall program, but it's the only program in the world where your very first jump is by yourself and it's not a static line. So you don't just jump out of a
ooh.
plane and it pulls your chute. So it's a packed parachute and you're doing 10 seconds of free fall and then pulling your own parachute and steering your way down, and you get 5 jumps, but your very first one is solo by yourself. And it's the only place in the world where you do that. And I was like, dude, I got paid to do this. Like, this is awesome. So I have my Air Force jump wings, which I know a bunch of guys have been to Fort Benning and jumped out. I think it's Fort Benning. They do that, right?
Sounds about right.
For airborne, they
Yeah.
they all jump. They all make fun of those wings. I'm like, yeah, but I actually had to free fall and steer myself. You were just a passenger in a parachute, and
Yeah.
yeah, you had a
Static
higher chance
line.
of a static line. Yeah, you had a higher chance of breaking your legs. And standard army training, there's always casualties, whether it's broken legs or more. But uh, there were dangers with ours too. I mean, if you didn't pull your own chute, there was an altimeter set where it would automatically pull for you. But the class after me, there was some kid, I don't know, poor decisions, just bad luck. But the dude straight up, you have this giant, huge open field to land in. The dude lands on the windsock and breaks his leg so bad they actually had to amputate the leg below the knee, and he was like 19 years old. It's like,
Oh,
yeah, it's like stuff can happen. You get
yeah.
some girls, they're so lightweight. You get these thermals in the summertime, they can't get down. So they spend 40 minutes in a parachute just constantly going up and then back down and up and back down. And there was one that landed in a Walmart parking lot on the other side of the highway because she couldn't get down. Um, I the yeah, there's still threats. There's still
Yeah.
just different kind. Um, and then I'm sure the army guys always want to be like, well, my program was better. I'm like, I'm not saying it's not better. It's just different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but at the same time, you could always kind of like trump them, like, well, I did fly the A10, so.
yeah, I did get to do that. So yeah, after commissioning, I commissioned in June of 2011. So that's when I became an officer. But my pilot training wasn't until like May the next year. And so the Air Force wasn't, they stopped the days where they make you a casual lieutenant and you start active duty, but you go work at some random base doing
Mm.
clerk work, shoe work, until you have a pilot, until your pilot slot is like you're ready for training. They didn't do that. So my plan was to initially go back up to Northern California and move furniture with my dad until the Air Force called. And 2 weeks before my commissioning, I get a phone call from them like, hey, it's a number from Alabama. And they're like, yeah, is this Keli Kaaekuahiwi? I'm like, yeah, it's him. They're like, hey, are you still interested in this position at UCLA? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like, okay, cool. You start in 2 weeks. I'm like, oh, okay, guess I'm moving to LA in 2 weeks. And so, like, it was a diversity recruitment for ROTC. And I'm sure when they saw my name, Keli Kaaekuahiwi, they're thinking some brown girl who has a pilot slot. And then I show up to training, just blonde hair with a dirty ass mustache. And yeah, it was, I mean, you go to high school college fairs and all that. That was my job, is I went to high school college fairs for the fall time. Got all these people be like, hey, come join my club, as I had a mustache and showed up in a van wrapped in Air Force stuff. I actually shaved my mustache for the that 3 month section. One of the few times I shaved my mustache, and I did that, but it was great because one, I got paid. I started active duty, and two, I was living in LA. I lived a mile from the beach near Venice Beach, and worked at UCLA, and like living the dream as a single lieutenant. Um,
Sounds like it.
waiting for oh yeah, and then waiting for pilot training to start, and then pilot training starts, and I move out to Del Rio, Texas, and do my training out there,
It's
which
like it's like Venice, right? A lot more
yeah,
sand.
same thing. What's
Yeah.
funny is I chose it as my first choice because I'm like, oh, it's on the border of Mexico. I love Mexican food. I'm living in San Diego already. This is going to be great. And then I show up out there, and I to tell you how good the Mexican food is in Del Rio, Texas. When I showed up, a Taco Bell had just opened in town and it had a line around the
Oh,
corner. Like when Taco
wow.
Bell has a line around the corner, you're like, oh boy, what's the actual local food like? It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was not good. It
What,
was not that Baja Mexican. It wasn't the fresh. It was just bland. And you wanted more flavor, you add hot sauce, but the hot sauce didn't have flavor. It just made it hotter.
yeah. When were you in Del Rio? When did you go to school?
I showed up there at the end of April of 2012, and I
Okay.
was there until October of 13.
Okay. I went there back in my first one of my first TDYs from Kelly was in Del Rio. I was there for like a week or so. But
Yeah, it's a place.
yeah, it probably hasn't changed much.
No,
They probably have
nope.
two Taco Bells now.
I
Uh,
heard they have a Chick-fil-A now,
oh,
so
okay.
that's big. The only good stuff out there when I was there was the Rudy's barbecue was good, and
And you got a Rudy's out there?
yeah, and the Rudy's was great out there. It's still my
Oh,
favorite Rudy's I've ever been to was that one.
nice.
Um, and the movie theater, you could see matinee movies for like $2. Like,
Okay.
yeah. And then the lake. The lake was good, Lake Amistad. But we couldn't go over to Acuna. We couldn't cross over to Boys Town.
I wonder why not.
Um, yeah, something about like heads showing up in soccer balls
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
So you go down there
Yeah.
and you're flying what, T-38s?
Yeah, I do T6s initially. And then after 6 months, my class had 22 people. Five of us got selected to go T-38s. I somehow made it to be part of that five. And then you do another 6 months in the T-38 flying the supersonic plane. And that plane was fun. It was a blast. But every time you start something new, the first couple times you're doing it, you're so far behind the jet. You're like, the jet's way out there and you're still trying to figure out, is my gear up? Like, did I actually leave the ground yet? Like, where am I?
Yeah.
And then after a couple rides, your brain starts to actually keep up with the speed and pace of how things are going. And that's kind of how like every phase for me was, is like I kind of struggled the first couple rides. And then I don't know, a flip would just switch and be like, oh, I got this. And then I do great the rest of it. And I guess that averaging out put me high enough that at the end of the entire thing, when it's time for your drop, how the Air Force works is you do all your training and then you put your drop, and they give you a blank sheet with all these planes on it and numbers. And you got to list 1 through 22 of what plane do I want in what order. And then depending on if the plane is available and if you're high enough in that ranking that someone else didn't take it, then you get that plane. But standard Air Force, it's like, yeah, there's 22 planes on that, but you have no idea what's actually available for your drop. And so I had the A10 as my number one choice. And then I had the F-16, and then I think the F-15E Strike Eagle, and then F-22. And then I actually put like the C-17 and then some spec ops stuff, and then all the way down to like bombers at the end. I was like, I didn't want to fly bombers. And drop night comes, and of the 22 people in our class, five of us got T-38s. There's an assignment that I did not want. It's called FAPing. It's the first assignment instructor pilot, where congrats, you get to now spend an additional 3 years at Laughlin Air Force Base in Del Rio.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to spend another 3 years here. And so they there were three lieutenants and then one captain and then an international guy. The international guy, he was Saudi. He was getting his fighter no matter what. One of the guys already got a fighter, and then the next guy was before me. It was between me and him of who was going to get a FAPE. And then the last guy in the group of us, he was a captain, so captains couldn't FAPE because career progression, they need you to move on and
Mhm.
do more. And so the guy, he was right before me. They called his name and they called him as being a FAPE. And I was even more excited. I was like, oh, it's not me. I tried to hide it, but I don't think I did. Um,
Like I hate
but
that guy.
so yeah, he probably did.
Yeah.
Um, but then they called my name, and they do a little, like a little map goes around the whole country, and it's like, where are you headed? And it shows, and it's like going to Barksdale. I'm like, no, don't want to be 52. And then it goes back to Laughlin. I'm like, no, I don't want to FAPE. And then it goes around, then it stops in Tucson. And I know, I'm like, oh man, that's what I wanted, because Davis Monthan Air Force Base, that's where the training for the A10 is. And so I got the A10, and I was pumped. Like it was it was like a dream come true.
I
And
bet.
then after that, go to SEER training, and then I had to go to San Antonio to Randolph for 3 months to do the fighter lead-in program, where they teach you the basics of how to actually be a fighter pilot. So they teach you how to employ same T-38, but how to actually use it as a weapon now instead of just getting point A to point B. And so you're using the T-38 and you fly air to air and air to ground missions where you're learning how to fight against other planes, learning how to do the basics of how to employ air to ground, how to talk to people, how to set targets up, and how to put yourself in the correct position so you're on the right parameters while delivering and being safe, and how to be a wingman, how to be in position, be on the radio, ready to go with whatever's needed. So
When you fly on missions, do you fly with other eight, like a squadron, or do you fly solo?
Um, in pilot training, you had some solo rides where it's just you, but you just go out to the airspace and go practice loops and rolls and aerobatics, and then come back and do some patterns. Basically, after that, you weren't solo until I got in the A10, like by myself with just myself. You wouldn't do that until you were a FAC A, forward air controller airborne. which I got to do that later on in the A10, which was a blast. But you're almost always in two, three, or four planes. For us,
Okay.
most often it was two or four, and mutual support, but you do everything as two planes. And so, one, when you're fighting, you can be able to look out for each other. You can go support the other guy. Air to ground, more weapons in a shorter amount of time on that, while one guy's diving at the ground to employ, the other guy's looking around, making sure the guy diving isn't getting shot at because that guy's focused on the ground. And then when you're off target coming off, you're then providing that mutual support for the other guy.
Mhm.
And so it's always it's you're never by yourself.
Yeah, and I was thinking that because I was like, I know the A10, there's not a co-pilot or a navigator, but
Yep.
and it made sense in my head, but just to understand it from your point of view or like your training it would make sense to have somebody else because you at least with the F-15 you have somebody that can look back for you or can tell you what's going on or whatever. But yeah, with A10 it's definitely a different ball of wax. You never did you ever have to do any air to air?
Not in real life,
Okay.
thankfully. I mean, even when I was out in Iraq and Syria, I had Russian jets flying around me all the time. We were ready for it if we had to, but never had to. And I'm glad we didn't have to because that
Yeah.
would just be a huge mess. But we carried live air-to-air missiles on our A10s. We could turn inside of anybody with the A10. Like it's a tighter turn radius than all the other fighters, so I can get my
Mhm.
nose on people if I wanted to. Our gun, if you heard of the A10, has a gun.
Yeah, I've
That
heard
thing,
it
it
several
doesn't.
times.
Yeah, it doesn't take many rounds to be able to destroy anything, and so we can be a threat, but we also have limitations. Like we're heavy, we're slow. We can't get our nose back up. If we can go uphill once and it's not very high, and then we're right back down. So if yeah, there's limitations to what we can do, but that's why we also are always flying in a pair.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it we were ready for it, but thankfully it never had to happen. But we trained to it all the time.
So I've always wondered about that. Like you mentioned other forces like China's really big on it and Russia where they're always constantly like at least from when I see the articles or like the video they always seem to be like taunting like trying to like provoke an incident or do something like I like what is that like to actually go through that to have them just keep messing with you and then not be able to
So I don't know. The best experience I have for that, I mean, yeah, I spent a year in Korea flying out there, and that's its own thing. We can get into that later. But my first deployment was actually to Eastern Europe in 2015 after Russia went into Crimea and
mm,
took it from Ukraine. And so I actually thought it was pretty cool. My first deployment, Eastern Europe, help with NATO because of the Russian presence and what they did in Ukraine. I was like, man, I've been to Ukraine. Like I know those people. And so I thought it was cool. I was out there. But that whole exercise for us out there, like we had jets in so many different countries just from our squadron. Like I had a hotel room in three different countries at the same time. Trying to do that travel voucher at the end was a nightmare. But we'd have like our home base, and then we'd send four jets forward to somewhere else, and four jets to another country, and then we'd come back, spend a week, and then do it again and go other places. So we were flying all over the place, and Russia was spying on us like crazy. We had our own OSI following us around, but also following them. And like they're definitely OSI is definitely not your friends. They're they'll rat on you faster than they'll rat on Russians. But
yeah.
dude, it's so painful. But I've also seen them us sitting at a bar on a weekend, and the Americans are at the bar because there's 30 of us, and we're blasting Bruce Springsteen on a ghetto blaster,
Yeah.
drinking beers, and then all of a sudden the squadron commander gets on a phone, hangs up. I'm like, oh, what was that? He's like, I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. And like 2 minutes come by, and these two guys in suits come and grab a guy and take him away because he's sitting there with an earpiece recording us. And it's like, oh, got it. But I
Yeah.
know that Russia was mad, and they didn't know how many A10s were in Europe. They thought a lot more than just 12 were there because of all the different things we were doing. Like we were
Mm.
busy when we were out there. Monday through Friday, it was work. And then the weekends we got to just rage in whatever city we went to. So
Yeah.
it was sweet. It was a great deployment. Got to see all this cool stuff. I actually got to do a flyby on the 4th of July of the Red Bull air races in Budapest, where we took off from Poland, flew into
Oh,
Hungary, did two passes with four A10s in Budapest of on the Danube River where the Red Bull air races were with like 1 million people watching. And then we went and landed in the Czech Republic and almost lit the town on fire with fireworks we brought in.
dang.
That was fun.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. To dang, that's pretty cool to fly with that many people watching and stuff. What was that like? Like that feeling to have an
Um,
American presence in another country and have them, I assume cheering for you. I don't know if they're shooting at
oh
you or
yeah,
not.
they absolutely were. I mean, they're a NATO country, and anytime A10s show up, it seems like people just love it. For me, like I was just number two in the four ship, and we did two passes, and I just wanted to make sure, man, this many people watching, don't fuck up.
Yeah.
Like you just make sure I made sure I was in position, and that's all I focused on was flight leads jet and making sure that my references were correct and I was where I needed to be. And that's all I focused on. Everything else, like I don't know, everything outside of the jet was a blur other than the jets around me and my parameters. So that's all I focused on. And then when you kind of fly away, that's when it really hits. It's like, oh, that was pretty sweet. And then all the pictures start showing up on the the internet of your past and videos and stuff. And then you kind of take it in. You're like, oh, that was pretty rad.
Yeah. I bet. What
So
so besides that one, what was the most like memorable mission? Like you had the most impact? Like I've heard of people or A10 pilots like where you land and let's say wherever deployment and some of the people will come up to him like, "Hey, thanks, you supported us on whatever." Like, did you have anything or anything, just whatever memorable thing comes to mind of missions you impacted?
there were there were a lot of missions on my actual combat deployment to Iraq and Syria. That was 2017 against ISIS, and we were busy. I mean, I was only there for 3 months because I couldn't delay going to South Korea. But in that 3 months, I flew over 200 hours.
Damn.
I flew 31 flights, and there were only two of those 31 that I didn't employ on. Like we were busy. I came back with an empty jet many times. And the weird part was a lot of the times when we were fighting, I wasn't talking to the people on the ground because it was foreign groups on the ground that we were working with, and they didn't have radios. They were I was talking to a JTAC via SATCOM who was in a talk or KAOK in a different country, and he's getting updates of what's happening on the ground from WhatsApp messages from the guys on the ground. And so it's funny that it's all in the news right now about all these guys talking on Signal in a group. I'm like, dude, we used Signal when we were deployed to talk with each other. And
Yeah.
I was overhead with A10s, my very first troops in contact. Um, it was my third mission of the deployment. And I had my first danger close troops in contact. And I was the wingman. I was flying with my DO, and his SATCOM wasn't working that great. So he wasn't getting the information needed to be able to employ, but mine was working fine. So I just told him on the radio, I was like, hey, one, I got this. He's like, okay, you got it. And so he doesn't hear much. And then the only thing he hears is me say weapon away 26 seconds. And he, in his mind, he's like, fuck, what did I just do?
Yeah.
And these guys on the ground, we're not talking with them. We're talking with a guy a couple hundred miles away, and he's getting updates via WhatsApp with where these guys are, where bad guys are, and trying to build a picture off of that. And in that situation, I actually couldn't even see because there was an undercast layer of clouds, so I can't see to update a position either. So we're just using GPS information for our weapons, and it was danger close in multiple directions. And I'm dropping a 2,000-pound bomb, kind of spreading or kind of cut a line through the middle of our friendly positions to hit a building. And I see an explosion through the clouds, and my timer goes out, which means normally at like -2, the bomb's detonated. And so I say, hey, time out. I see effects below the clouds. How are the friendlies? And he's like, oh, I'll find out. Hold on. And like 5 minutes go by, and it's just silent. And I'm like, fuck, did I just kill all the good guys? And after 5 minutes, he comes back. He's like, hey, yeah, sorry for the slow response. They're messaging me via WhatsApp. I'm like, dude, this is seriously how this war is being fought? Is over WhatsApp? He's like, yeah, they're all good. Your bomb hit the building. Dude, great success, man. Good job. And that whole 5 minutes is like the longest 5 minutes of my life.
Man.
And the DO is just sitting there in his other jet for that 5 minutes, just like, fuck, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired. What did I just let happen? And I'm sitting there if like, oh my God, how many people did I just kill? And he comes back with like, oh yeah, you had 9 EKIA, success, time this. And I'm like, okay, wow, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. So was
So
that your first one, like where you dropped?
that wasn't the first one I dropped, but that was the first one I got confirmed
It got you.
EKIA on. Yeah, so I actually dropped within 30 minutes on my very first mission, combat mission. Um, it was in Mosul in Iraq at night, and the very first thing I do, there was a boat going across the Euphrates River, or no, Tigris River in Mosul, and it felt like the Oregon Trail. They're fording the river, and I got to stop them from crossing the river. And so I lays a bomb right onto this boat, and I'm like, who would have thought the first thing I blow up on Iraq is a boat? It's like,
Yeah.
I would have never thought that, but that was the first thing I blew up. We did that and then some weapon caches and stuff. I ended up dropping 5 bombs on my first mission. But the second mission, I blew up a tank. I shot a Maverick missile at a tank. And I was like, oh my gosh, every A10 driver's dream, blowing up a tank.
Yeah.
And then the third mission, I had my first danger close troops in contact. And after 3 missions, I'm like, dude, I've done like all the things I wanted to do. What else is there to do on this deployment? There was a lot. We were doing things that like I couldn't even imagine. Um, I actually there was one day where if you're familiar with Syria at all, or you look at a map of it, you have um, Raqqa, the one of the biggest cities in Syria. West of Raqqa is the biggest lake in Syria. The Tabqa Lake or Tabqa Dam is the dam that controls it. And ISIS took over the dam, and they were actually gonna flood the city of Raqqa. They're going to open all the gates and just let all the water of the lake out and flood everything along the Euphrates. And so we needed to stop them from being able to do that. And so we show up one day, and it's towards the end of my deployment, and we couldn't touch that dam. I couldn't put a white phosphorus rocket, a Willie Pete rocket down on this dam because it was a no fire area. And all of a sudden, I get this 9 line, which is how you prosecute a target.
Hmm.
And I look at the coordinates and I'm like, dude, confirm this is the dam. He's like, yeah, it is. I'm like, what part? He's like, oh, it's the control building of the dam. And I'm like, you want a 2,000 pound bomb on the control building of this dam that's a no fire area? He's like, oh, it's not a no fire area right now. I'm like, are you sure? And I'm like, we got lawyers watching every single employment we do. And I'm like, I want to make sure this is legal. He's like, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm like, all right, this is a big bomb. Like, what are the effects you're going after? Because you tell me what you want, and it's up to me to weaponeer it. And he's like, we need to put a hole in the top of this roof so we can shoot ATACMs through that hole, which are the GPS guided artillery
Hmm.
rounds. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this will do that. This will put a hole in the roof of that dam, and you should be able to shoot artillery through this hole. And so that's what we did. The whole plan was I bust open the roof, and the control building's this 13-story control tower for the dam. And I put a hole, and then they shoot artillery rounds that go through my hole and punch out every floor inside this building so ISIS can't open the gates. And I do that mission, and I'm like, dude, this is wild. I get back and land at my base, and I'm actually now in my hotel room because we were living in housing, but my replacement already showed up, so he took my room. So I was in the hotel room for like the last week, and I turn on the TV, and like on like whatever news channel is my smoking hole in that dam, and I'm like, dude, I literally just landed from this. How is this already on the news?
Damn.
Like, you can go on Google Maps and see where they patched my hole still today.
Man. I wonder if maybe the signal chat got hacked.
Maybe,
Or
who
they let
knows? Well,
somebody in, whatever. Yeah.
they knew when we were flying overhead, like we're not invisible. And we had multiple times where we'd be sitting in the squadron and a guy pulls out his phone on Twitter and sees updates from people in Syria. It's like, oh, A10's over this position with a timestamp. So like there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I I gotta take a leak real quick. We're gonna
I'm gonna do
Pause.
the same.
Yeah, I'll do the same. We'll come back. Stand by.
Yep.
Feel better. Let me
Oh,
clap
hold
real
on.
quick. Yeah, man. I can't imagine what that's like. I mean, I can imagine, but it's like I had my experience with supporting troops on the ground was I was calm, right? So we touched many different systems, right? And one of those, especially my last 5 years, and then one of my deployments was the kayak. And I it really which is crazy about it is when I first my first deployment, right, was to Qatar in '99. And long story short, we ended up setting up the first kayak, right, with Com. I didn't know what it was. It was kind of a hush hush mission, yada yada. September 11th happens. Fast forward '07, I supported a mission in kayak, realized that that was the thing that I was supporting then. Maybe they told us, I just don't remember. I was a airman basic, or I believe, or at least an airman. And then fast forward, um, you want to go out there, girl? Hold on. I'm gonna let my dog out real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it was just like a calm outage or whatever, where kind of they reached everyone they could, and fortunately for us, we touched so many systems, like, and then like they had their own comm unit, like within the chaos or wherever. But unfortunately, whatever was the lack of experience or whatever, we got caught, and we were kind of like became like the people on base, right, that knew all the stuff with comm because we touched so many systems, E&I and all kinds of things. But so to support from a just a comm aspect and never really get to see the mission to actually supporting, like, with UAVs or whatever, right? And then to see the direct result of it on some of them, and then not understand, the all the elements that were involved for that decision to happen, right? And then fast forward to understand it a little bit more fidelity with it. I was at the SPO, and we supported all radio systems at all KOCs around the world. So we supported the end of life of the systems for radio systems, PIC 117s, mids, LVT, yada yada, right?
Good old 117s.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, and then to kind of hear your uh experience with it, it kind of starts to point things, or put things in perspective, and a more understanding of everything that's kind of involved with it, um to include like actually launching the bomb and supporting whatever missions, right? And there's all these different levels to it, right? There's so many different aspects to one decision, right? And you lose sight of it, right? Because of the sense of accountability, right? And some people kind of get fixated on that. Well, I did this or I did that, and that contributed to this or that, right? Um, I guess my question, I'm getting around to my question, and unfortunately, sometimes I take the fucking scenic route, right, to get that. But I think it's all relative. And is there anything that you've ever done that, of course, Lotus wants to be on the podcast, um, that you've ever done that challenged your faith with a flying mission or strengthened it? Because I feel, what's that?
In terms of challenging my faith, no, I don't think so. I don't know. My job was extremely violent, like extremely violent. And we were close enough that we could see everything we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've seen people turn into a little pink mist and body parts everywhere. And first time you know that you like take a life, and it's one thing when they're in a building and I blew up the building. Whoever was in that building is gone. When it's a dude out in the open and you ripped him in half with a rocket,
Mm-hmm.
like That's a little more intimate. Never as intimate as the guy on the ground with a gun. Like
Right.
you're literally looking at his eyes. I can't see these guys' eyes, but I could see human shaped, and then all of a sudden less human shaped.
Yeah.
um, but like it never really bothered me in a way of like, oh yeah, I just killed a bunch of people because I think because it was ISIS.
Mm.
Um, I see them as just pure evil,
Yeah.
and the less of them in the world's a better place. So I never had any issues with that. The hard part would be, are there any civilian casualties with this? Are there any side effects from this employment that we did? And there was a time in Mosul where ISIS would put a sniper on the roof of the building. And at the time, Iraqis were in charge of actually all of our targeting because it was their country. We're trying to include them. And they were just like, oh, ISIS in that building, drop the whole building. And so, like, we were doing that. And so there was whole buildings just going down. And then ISIS started learning and be like, oh, we could put a guy in here and they're going to destroy the whole building. Let's pack this building with civilians and have them destroy the building with a
Yeah.
minute. And ISIS isn't dumb. Like they were very smart. They know what they're doing. And so that was happening. When I saw that on the news, I actually had to go back and look. And I was like, oh, thankfully I didn't fly on those days, or I was in Syria, not Iraq on those days. So that gave me a little bit of a warm fuzzy of, well, I'm not responsible for that.
Mm.
But then the next time I did show up in Mosul and they're like, hey, we got a sniper in this fourth floor of this 6-story building. I'm like, oh, great. Are they going to want me to drop the building? They're like, they actually kind of took control back from the Iraqis. They're like, hey, we're going to try something different. You got those laser rockets on you? It's like, yeah. Like, can you put one of those or put two of them through this window of this building? And I'm like, yeah, I can, but like, this is a diving delivery. I need you to clear everyone out below us. And they're like, okay, well, we'll work on that. And so, like, these were a new weapon. They took one
Mm.
of our high explosive rockets and just put a laser guidance kit on the front. And the cool thing with his weapon was it was a zero collateral damage weapon. So if I was in the room with you, probably not in the room because it's a closed environment, we'd all be dead. But if you're out in the open, it works really well for checkpoints and stuff. If someone's standing next to you and I wanted to target them and not you, from a mile or 2 miles away, I could shoot that thing and I could hit the dude next to you and you would walk away. Like it was accurate. It was awesome. And so, but because it's such a new weapon, we didn't get to employ these in practice before we got out there. So we're
Mm.
literally learning how to use these in combat. And we're over Mosul and trying to stay high enough that they can't shoot you with small arms and all that. And I was the flight lead on this one. So my wingman was actually carrying the laser weapons, and I was the one actually lasing it in, kind of the finger of God moving my laser pointer
Mm.
around, guiding this thing in. And so I told him, I was like, hey, um, pretend you're delivering a Maverick missile from 3 miles away up at 18,000 feet. I want you to roll in, and when you see my laser energy, because we have systems in the jet and different indicators in the heads up display that'll show you that you have laser energy and it's locked on. It's like when you see that, fire your two rockets and start your safe escape and get away from the ground. Don't go any lower than this altitude. And so he does it and it works great. Dude, both those rockets go right through this window and I see three bodies fly out the adjacent windows and the whole building's intact. And I'm like, man,
Whoa.
this is game changing. Like it literally we made it so that it was no longer about just killing ISIS. It was kill ISIS while saving as many other lives. And that's the whole point too. Like that's why I got the A10 is I got friends that wouldn't be here today if it weren't for A10s that didn't show up or that did show up.
Right.
They're here now. And the only time I got to really fight out there with Americans was there were Marines with artillery out in Syria, and I got to support them and keep people away from them a few times. And actually, it's kind of funny. One of them, one of those missions, it was like the most CAS close air support mission that I did, where there was a JTAC on the ground. I was talking to them. There were Apache helicopters. I was working with them. We had Marines with 777 artillery shooting those in our target area too. So it was we got the whole military here working together on this day, and it felt like what we trained for. It was probably the most normal mission that I could have imagined. It only happened a handful of times, but that was working with Army and Marine and our guys because most of what we were doing were with local nationals out there,
Hmm.
Kurds, SDF, Iraqis, and years later after that, I was at indoc training with Delta, and there was an Apache guy in my class, and he was sitting at my table. He was one of the Apache guys that day. So he and I
Oh,
had flown together in Syria
yeah.
on that day. So that was pretty cool. And he now flies at Delta with me. So
Dang, that's crazy, dude. So you kind of unintentionally answered the last question. Like, what's the most rewarding thing of being looking back on it like an A10 pilot?
Mhm. Helping the guys on the ground. I mean, we all have our customers. Like you said, you got to see, oh, here's all the work I do, but what does it actually do?
Hmm.
And with that, it's like I'm out there for the 18-year-old Marine or Army or Navy or Airman, whatever, out there having the worst day of his life, trying to make sure he can come home. And there were multiple days where we showed up with troops in contact, and you show up and you're like, here's a situation, and you're rolled in with guns like a minute after you check on. And we're there to make sure they get to go home. And then in order for us to do that job, we got so many people in the background behind us making sure we could do our job. And so all the ammo guys loading up our jets with new weapons because we're just expending like crazy. The comm guys making sure we got the right crypto squirted in the jet so our bombs can actually talk to satellites, like, and our jet can talk to satellites. Uh, you got fuels, you got the maintainers, you got everyone in the background, all the guys in the talk and the chaos drawing up the plans. Like there is so much that goes into a single sortie for us to go fly. And like we're just I can't say the end game piece, but
Right.
being the tip of the spear, as you know, the tip of the spear, there's a lot going on to make that spear go forward. So knowing that I want to make sure they know what they're doing helps support this cause too. So we were making with our targeting pod footage. It was all classified stuff and it was a lot of work to declassify it. So sadly, I don't have any of that.
Mm.
But we would make every 2 weeks a compilation of uh all of our employments. And we'd invite them into the squadron and show it to them, be like, hey, here is what we're able to do because of your guys' support.
Right.
And we'd bring the security forces guys in. We'd bring everyone in and be like, hey, come check this out. This is because what you did helped us get there. So
Yeah.
that was always rewarding.
Yeah, and it makes sense like to especially as leaders, right? And it's like how do you motivate the guys at the ground level to
Mhm.
see what the bigger picture is, right? And it's to see the end result. Um and I felt like that's what was challenging for me and on various levels, right? Everyone's affected by this on various levels, but whenever we went back to uh home base or whatever, like it was uh a lot of the stuff that we would do, and perhaps I just did a poor job of not understanding like the training aspect of it or anything like that. But when we had like to move furniture for the unit I was like, just deploy me again. I don't want to be here
Yep.
doing this stupid shit.
Yep.
Um, but dude, man, like I know you, but and I know we've been trying to do this for a while, but I appreciate you taking the time one, and I wish you were here because I usually cook for my guests. You know what I mean? That's I love cooking.
Your
So,
your your cooking's good.
oh, thanks, man. Oh yeah, I forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the retreats and stuff,
Angel
dude.
fire.
Yeah, dude. Hell yeah. But yeah, I mean, I owe you a lunch or a dinner or breakfast, whatever. Next time. Maybe
Hmm.
one time we can maybe in the future we could do one in Utah or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. I appreciate you taking the time, one, two, being like just transparent with or just sharing what you've shared. Hopefully it helps folks on whatever uh, their life mission is, whatever that is, whether they become a pilot, join the military, or at the very least, if they're struggling from, I don't know, not understanding the bigger picture, or maybe perhaps not understanding like all the wickets in line for bomb to drop or one bullet to be fired. Well,
Mhm.
yeah, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh,
dude.
thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Again, I appreciate taking the time, and hopefully your shoulder heals up quickly and you get riding again. I think maybe start watching out for hoes and snowboarding and stuff like that. And I got to look up some of those moves because I know some like 360, 540. I'm like, damn, that sounds like a lot of rotations. Definitely more than 360. But
Yeah.
do you have any GoPro footage of any of those things? Because you know it doesn't.
So
It
I
never
know it
happens. There's
doesn't.
no footage,
So
man.
what's funny is I have footage, it's on my YouTube that I uploaded 20 years ago from old handheld Sony camcorders.
Oh,
My
nice.
buddy's holding on the side as I'm doing the jumps, and I've got I've got that trick that I did. I got that on there multiple times. I got a huge 720 I did in Mammoth, and it was uploaded shortly after YouTube began. So it doesn't seem like a lot of views now, but back in 2005, 30,000 views was a lot on YouTube, and probably should have kept up with those. But I mean, as you know, life happens, and
Yeah.
one reason why I like being out there and living here in Utah is, I mean, 12 years of active duty and college before that, you don't get a lot of choice. Like,
Mm-mm.
you're not living in the places you exactly want to live in. You make the most of while you're there, but I missed out on many seasons of snowboarding, and like snowboarding was my jam. Like that's what I wanted to do. And we made the most of it. We were in Korea, we went skiing in Japan for a week, and um, tried to go as many places as we could, but it's difficult. And it's like, as you know, with leave and any other vets, you have your leave. How do you want to use it? Like, are you going to go visit family, or are you going to go on vacation? Luckily, when I visit family, we had it was kind of like vacation because you have all that stuff up there. But also there's the expectation of, oh, you're in town. You need to come see me. You need to come see me. And I'm like, man, you haven't seen me in a year and I've been all over the world.
Yeah.
Can you drive 10 minutes and come see me now that I'm actually here?
Dude, you said it, dude. And as you know, like when you're younger, you do that, you kind of go to your way to go see those individuals. But after a
Yep.
while, you're like, man, I just spent like 7 grand to get home or whatever, and I only got this much time. You can't drive
Yeah.
like 15 minutes, and then you're giving me
Yeah.
attitude.
Yes,
Yeah, dude,
dude.
I hear what
And
you're saying.
so that's one of the downsides too of it's awesome. My wife and I, we both grew up in the same area. She was in the bigger town of Arnold, which was 1,000 feet down the hill. And when we go back out there, we stay at her place, stay with her family. And then all my family is like, "Oh, when are you gonna come see me?" I'm like, "I am right here. It's 5 minutes away. Come on over." Like, I don't have a car. We flew
Yeah,
in here. Come see me.
yeah,
Oh no, I can't believe you didn't come see me. I am there, dude. Like,
yeah,
you know what I don't want to do? I don't want to go just sit in an office all day. I don't
yeah,
like come hang out, or I'm gonna go out in the woods. You want to come walk in the woods with us? Let's go do that.
yeah,
Like, yeah, and I think almost every vet can, like you said, early on, you're excited, you get home and you want to share, and people want to know of what your experiences are like. But then time goes on and you're like, man, if you want to hear it, I'll be here at this time. Come see me.
yeah. And that's what it boils down to. I think we'll probably it makes you value your, I mean, maybe getting older also, kids, all these things, but the military definitely makes you aware of how much time you either use, lost, have left, whatever,
Yeah.
because you do a lot of things you don't want to do and be a lot places. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things that happen with that, but at the same time, it makes you appreciate it and very, like, really value the people that choose to be in your life and those that
Yep.
don't make the effort,
Yep.
and it's with close family, friends, whatever. Um, and yeah, and are willing to, overcome whatever things to go see you or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, man, I
Yeah.
appreciate you, dude. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
People don't realize too. It's like you share all these stories and you talk about all these cool things, and my job was really cool. I got to fly a ton and I got to do all this. But what people don't realize is all that flying is like 5% of the time. Like all the other 95% is just either preparing for it or doing the standard, oh, you got to do this training right now. Oh, you got to do this again. Oh, it's your annual requirement to do your good old cyber awareness training.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you
And
said it.
oh my gosh. And I mean, yeah, everyone had to do it. I get it.
Yeah.
But it's like, at least update it. So I'm not just trying to get good old DJ Mike trying to sling his mixtape at me every year.
Yeah.
Like, like, come on. And I mean, that one was one of the least painful ones. It's just the day in, day out grind of 12 to 14-hour days. And the only reason for us flying, the only reason we have a shorter day is because you have a hard, you need to be back in the squadron in 12 hours, and you legally have to be out for 12 hours. So get
Right.
out of the building. And that's your free time. Is like I spend so much time, especially for us being a fighter pilot, you're in a vault. Like no phone, you're in there and you're studying or you're preparing, or you have your other job that you have to do. So it wasn't just flying. You're in charge of scheduling or training or safety or stand eval and all the other things to make a squadron work and everyone be legal to fly. And that takes up most of your time. And so when it came time to be done, and I was like, wait, I can just join the airlines and just show up and fly. And when I'm done flying, I'm done. Like, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. And
And the toll on my body that being a fighter pilot takes on you too.
yeah, we didn't even get into that. Maybe we'll save that for next time. Like all the just firing the cannon and like all the carbide or whatever that's coming out of the freaking rounds
Yeah, the
and
cordite.
cordite. I'm sorry, I jacked that
Yeah,
up.
that stuff smells great.
Yeah, I bet. I bet you
Yeah.
could smell it right now as you say it.
Oh yeah, I know that smell.
Yeah.
You never lose that smell. Yeah, between that and then all the G forces and the unnatural body positions you're in while it's happening, like I've got neck and back issues, and I knew I knew in my late 20s that I wasn't doing 20 years flying fighters. Like I couldn't turn my head. If my neck tightened up, I couldn't turn my head for a week. And I was like, man, this is affecting things I want to do daily with my kids when I'm
Hmm.
older, and I'm not going to be able to. And so like I knew I was going to serve out my 10 years requirement. Being a pilot, your 10 years starts after you graduate from pilot training. So for me, it was almost 12 years. And I was like, I'm just gonna do airlines after that. So that's where we're at now.
That's good, man. I'm glad you were aware enough to realize that there was something else after the military when some people kind of just latch onto it and that's their identity and yeah, and just don't understand it for what it is.
Yeah.
Me included in that. Like, you think that you're staying for other people or getting in a better position to potentially change the way things are. But then you just realize that, any new commander that comes in is going to be at their, however they choose to run it or what have you.
Yep.
Um, and it's the day that you leave, someone is going to replace you. Everyone's replaceable.
Everyone is replaceable. And the day you leave, probably the day after you leave is probably the hardest day because you're like, you wake up and you're like, I don't have to put on that uniform right now. I don't have to do anything right now. And when I started being an airline pilot, it's a lot of work when you're initially learning how to do your plane. It's like 5 weeks of training for it, and it's a lot of work. But then you start actually doing the work, and you're like, wow, you don't realize how hard you worked when you're in the military.
Hmm.
You don't realize like how busy you were all the time until
Yeah.
you get out and do something else. Because I mean, the military is probably still one of those places of you don't realize it. You even look around the squadron at the guy who slacks off the most, who does the least amount of stuff, he'd still be incredibly successful outside doing anything else. And it's especially in the fighter community where, like, as I said, getting through there were so many different cutoffs that I somehow made it through. You take the worst guy in the squadron and like he'd be a rock star like anywhere else. And you're working with elite people. You're working with guys who are driven and want to be there. And maybe outside of the fighter world, it might be a little different, but the people who flew, or not just flew, but the guys working on the line, maintainers and all that, like those guys work so hard. And I think when they finally get out one, they've earned it, and two, like it takes a toll on your body. Like I hope those guys like either one get physical help that they need because they're exposed to a lot of stuff and the amount of strenuous work and in the sun, in the heat, in the cold. Like I hope they can actually find something. They did enjoy it. It's why they did it. But I hope they can find something just as enjoyable outside too, because they earned it and they should be able to do something that they enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And once one thing I run into a lot of is, especially with veterans in transition, is they often minimize their military experiences by comparing it to others,
Yeah.
saying they didn't do enough. And it could be a frontline guy, it could be a guy that's just like it just happens no matter where. It's pretty, I mean, it's rare that I ran into somebody who's just like, I was the best ever, you know. Maybe there's some
Oh
fighter
yeah.
pilots
Oh
like
yeah.
that. And you have to.
I'm sure there are, but not nice thing is for the most part, like you have some guys, there's always one or two out there
Mhm.
that are like, "Oh, yeah, I'm hot shit. Like, I could do everything." But then most of us there, we're like, "Dude, we're there for each other. We're all going through the same thing together. Like, let's just help each other out." And I don't know, the weapons school always teaches humble, approachable, and you try and find that. And the humble guys, like, those are the ones you always gravitate towards and want to be around. Those are the ones that people want to fly with.
Mhm.
Is we admit when we make mistakes, and mistakes happen. Like, dude, it's a complex mission. There's a lot going on. You can have a lapse in judgment, like even doing something minor, and it can be big. And you get back, you're like, "Hey, man, I fucked up. I did this." And we would try and make it a learning event, not to punish you, but make it so that the same mistake doesn't happen again in the future. And try and learning from each other and always making each other better. Like I think that's what it's all about. Like,
Definitely, man. Yeah, and I appreciate you. Well said. And yeah, dude, like I and one of the things with this podcast is to kind of share people's stories so that way they can help them way out, like, or help themselves out, like in transition or what have you. But dude, like, I appreciate you and I appreciate your time and everything that you shared and stuff. And we'll do this again. Maybe get into some of the more nuances of the technicality of flying, whether for Delta or flying like the basic nuances of A10, like, and just kind of let you nerd out in some of the specifics. I mean, within reason, I know some of the stuff's like classified avionics and stuff like that. But I appreciate you, man, and hopefully we get to ride soon. And yeah, tell the family I said hi. And if you're
yeah,
ever in
man.
Texas, dude, hit me up, dude. I owe you some home cooked food.
Yeah, I absolutely will. We can chat about some actual biking next time too.
Yeah, dude, let's do that. That was my plan, but like these things go where they
Yeah.
go, unscripted. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
man,
fun.
let's
Hit
nerd
hit
out
me
on some
up. I
bikes.
got I got nothing going on for a while. I'm on the disabled list.
Yeah, man.
So,
Definitely. You do
yeah.
the same, dude. Hit me up whenever. Just want to chat. Just want to curse me out for a minute. Just vent, whatever, dude. Let me know.
Sounds good, Simon.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Let me just